This episode is a little bit different, but the perfect way to close out season 3, a season where we went beyond just career transformations and explored our deep connection with the body. My guest today is Mayra Hurtado, co-founder of Prelude Health and a passionate advocate for women taking back control of their health, inspired by her own hormonal health struggles and nearly 2 decades in sales and marketing. What her titles won't tell you is just how kind, grounded, and genuinely curious Mayra is. She was actually the first guest to ask me about my journey. And that says everything about how she moves through the world. The episode goes far beyond careers. It's full of the kind of hormonal health knowledge that every woman deserves to have. And of course, we end on a very personal note, sharing why we do what we do and how you can tell if you're on the right track.
I think the biggest lesson is that people is at the center of everything we do. And that's something that is very, very easy to forget when you're chasing, numbers. But the reality is all the products in this world are created for someone. You need people around you to help you create that product. You need people around you to get you to deliver that product. So in reality, it's a very collaborative approach. And I feel that as long as we have in mind why we're doing it or for who are we doing it for, it helps us to keep our mind on the goal.
Hello, good morning, Mayra, and good afternoon, I guess, for me. And I'm saying this because you are in Mexico as we're recording this, which is your hometown, but that's not where you live.
Good morning to you. It's an early start for me. I'm here for the holidays, visiting my family, but I'm actually living in Singapore for, I think it's going to be 16, 17 years at this point.
Yeah, so how did you end up all the way from Mexico to Singapore? It's not the most obvious transition. So how did that happen?
Well, I started my career working in manufacturing here in Mexico. And at some point I wanted to go to Asia. Asia was the dream. Obviously, this is long time ago. And I went to do an MBA. After my MBA, I got a job. I got an internship in Adidas, and then eventually that converted into a job. And then I spent 10 years there. All of a sudden, I'm there 15 years, 16 years.
Yes, it feels like a long time. And we were just chatting just before we hit the recording about the flexibility that the new employment that you have or the new job that you have gives you. It's, as you said, it's a lot of work, but it does come with some perks, such as being able to control your schedule a bit more and being where you need to be rather than where you have to be, or more like where you want to be. So that's an interesting topic that we're going to get into. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you got into launching a femtech company, and maybe explain for our listeners what a femtech is, because I'm not sure if everybody knows that.
Yeah, absolutely. So femtech is defined as products or services that serve women in areas that have been traditionally very underserved, especially in health, using technology. So that's the simple answer. During the pandemic, I was working. I had a fantastic job. I had a very, very good role, very great team, but I was struggling with my health. I had problems sleeping. I had sometimes I got a burst of anxiety. I all of a sudden inflated into eight. I gained 10 kgs out of nowhere, and usually had a healthy lifestyle. I ate well, I exercised, the usual things. And I was in my late 30s. I also had migraines. I even saw, I laugh because now it's funny, but I went to see chiropractors. I went to get an MRI, and they couldn't find anything until finally a nutritionist sent me to do lab tests. And she's the one that explained to me what was happening. But to get to that, I spent a lot of money back and forward. With lab tests, I feel very grateful because I had access, but the reality is a very small percentage of women have access to those tools. And that's how I figured out that my hormones were fluctuating. My cortisol was very high. That threw off my estrogen, and that created all these sort of symptoms that I was struggling with. Once I got into the right nutrition, supplementation, lifestyle regimen, literally I deflated 8 kgs in like around 8 months, so within the year. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to really understand, because just to give you a bit of background, my job in Adidas was to look at trends. What was the consumer looking at? What's the statistics? What are people doing? How do we solve this problem? And then I
Yeah, so you were a
realized,
little bit of a problem solver there, and it sounds that captured your imagination. You probably, and as is the case with most entrepreneurs, you just sat then that well thought I can't be the only one. There must be other women who are struggling with this, and how do we get that?
right. And honestly, I didn't think it was going to lead to this. Like you said, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, it happens like that. So I started talking to other women, and then I met my co-founder, Dr. Kumble. She explained to me her experience, and then we thought, hey, I mean, there's definitely an opportunity to improve things. But yeah, I never really planned it like that. It kind of organically happened, and we just wanted to solve something. And you said something earlier is we were trying to solve for us, but then we realized we could help many more people.
Yeah, and tell me a bit more about harmony. So we know where the inspiration came from. This was your own struggle with, I suppose, perimenopause and then fluctuations in these hormones. And I think everyone who's ever trying to get a good understanding of their hormones will probably have faced a lot of frustration because it's not, as you say, straightforward. You need to speak with specialists. There are many products out there, but there's not necessarily the support. It's not intuitive. It is very expensive, prohibitively expensive for most people. What is Harmony trying to solve for them?
To add to that, beyond the discomfort of the symptoms, we need to be mindful that hormones, they're neurotransmitters, and they basically support all your systems, your heart, your brain, your lungs, your skin, your hair. So the whole body is protected or protected by it. So what we really wanted to understand is what are the things that we take all of these supplements. Raise your hand if you know if they work. We don't know, right? So we do a lot of things for trial and error, and what we wanted to do is take out that guessing out of the whole process. And the best way to do it is with data. So my co-founder, Dr. Kumble's background, she's an expert on diagnostics. In her previous company, she designed, manufactured, and commercialized diagnostic blood testing machine that could be used in places with little access to testing. So her vision was, how do we make also testing accessible so we can actually validate the recommendations that we're giving to women. And the best way to do it is, or the gold standard is saliva. And that's where the whole technology comes in, where we make available at home rapid testing through saliva for women, where they can take the test, take a picture of the test with their phone, and then the phone algorithm will provide a report in a few minutes, but also provide easy to follow recommendations on how to tackle it on your own, or you can also share with your practitioner if you want. And the recommendations include what type of nutrition is better for every stage of the month, what type of exercise, what type of supplementation could be recommended for this stage in lifestyle.
So is
Because
this a live thing that changes? So let's say 1 month is showing me X, Y, and Z, or maybe I should slow it down, take a bit more care of myself, and then maybe another month is saying, oh, maybe you should change your nutrition. How often does the recommendation change, or is it like, oh, I've done it once and that's it, I don't need it anymore?
yeah, very important. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is that when you go to the lab, you get the result from a single point of time. But the reality is that hormones change all day, every
They
day.
probably change daily.
Yeah, no, but it's right. Yeah, you're right on point. So, for example, in my case, I woke up at let's say 6:30. So I was feeling a little bit sluggish. The first 30 months, my cortisol starts spiking. By now, it's already 8:30. So now you can hear me speaking a little bit faster. Around the middle of the day, I'm probably gonna start crashing because I'm a little bit jet lag as well. And hopefully, my cortisol will deep down at the end of the day so I can sleep. And all these hormones, they work in cocktail. So one triggers the other and vice versa. So my cortisol was, in my case, spiking my estrogen and causing, a few of other
Is
issues.
that possible? It's possible for cortisol to impact, because I obviously know very little about this. So this is very interesting. And I think I know men also do struggle a lot with cortisol, but here we're talking about the female hormones as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'll give you one simple example. Estrogen is a protective hormone, so it has anti-inflammatory properties as well. So at certain stage of our lives, estrogen might start coming down, and that allows cortisol to run freer than before. And if we have very stressful lifestyles, for example, women, we want to do everything for everyone all the time and take very little care of ourselves, that might provoke our cortisol to spike. And without the protection or the caution of estrogen, that's when we start gaining weight, we start getting more anxiety. And, there's a series
Yeah.
of chain effects.
And I almost feel that this is not something that's happening during poses such as menopause, perimenopause. I have many friends who had challenges with losing weight after they gave birth. And obviously, when you become a mother, all of your hormones change completely. So that's another area where I think I would imagine that test can be helpful when you're trying to figure out what is it that it's been a year and I still haven't gone back to what it was before. Is it the lack of sleep or is there something additional in there?
Yeah, and the thing is that one is function of the other, is really a circle. So if, for example, moms that have babies, they have to wake up every few hours to feed their baby, right? That means that they will get their circadian rhythm disturbed. And if that's disturbed, then the body doesn't have enough time to recover, and that will throw off other parts or other hormones. And then catching up can be very challenging.
Okay, so how can Hominy help us with? But I think that's the question because I think we all know it's challenging, and sometimes you just accept in life that not everything can get fixed immediately. And I'm always very suspicious of anyone who comes and starts selling. And trust me, you see this everywhere on Instagram or social media, and I just had to turn off so many things because oh yeah, lose weight in 7 days, get your dream job in 1 week, make quick money, become a millionaire in 2 weeks, and all these things which just don't sense. That's not how it works. But yet people keep falling for it, the fast results. So I wonder whether it was even challenging for you to get in front of people, investors actually, who you have to convince to give you money. And we know that a big portion of the investors out there are men who haven't gone through these things. So maybe they can relate, maybe they can't. And I'm sure there's been some challenges along the way.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. I mean, we've been doing this now. It's going to be over 3 years almost. At the start, it was challenging with men and women because I think, first of all, none of us are educated because there's just not enough information. It hasn't been researched enough in the past. So no fault to anyone. Um, and then the other thing is that it's a very scary topic because it's like, oh, am I at the end of the line? Am I gonna get old? Am I gonna die, if you would? It's just very scary topic. And I think a big change has happened in the last year, maybe a couple of years, where people like doctors like Mary Claire Harvey, and Dr. Mosconi, uh, a few of them that have been doing a lot more research and talking about how this stage is beautiful. And the same way we celebrate a girl going into womanhood, when they are turning 13, 15.
Puberty in reverse. This is exactly what one of my guests said, Rachel Lancaster. She was here a couple of episodes ago, and,
Right.
and she's focusing on fighting against ageism, and she's saying the exact same thing. So there's a lot of education going on around the whole topic. So you're helping a bit more with the whole science and getting results and practical recommendations, but it is probably part of a bigger project around actually making people comfortable talking about those things. And that's why things such as the podcast, which is anything that makes people feel like this is not a taboo topic, is important.
Exactly. And that's why we're super grateful for platforms like yours. Work like she's doing, because they're the ones that are helping us bring the topic out in the open, so we can actually get support to bring the scientific method to the equation, and have science-based conversations, and also build more science, because there's a huge gap on data, and we need data to be able to have informed conversations.
Yeah, I was just editing an episode with Dorota Cloak, who's a nutritionist and a biohacker. And I think you're going to love this one when it comes out in a couple of months. And she was saying the same thing about the hormones and nutrition and how a big part of nutrition is actually being in sync with your body, listening to it, and especially for us as women, being in sync with the cycle. And I think ever since I started paying a lot more attention to where I am in the phase, things have changed for the better for me. Again, we explore these topics in a lot of depth in the coming episodes, but I just wanted to take your take on this and just get a little bit more of a practical understanding and example. Okay, I go and try Harmony. I think hopefully it's going to be launched very, very soon. In fact, some of us cannot wait to see what it's like, but it sounds like it's very easy. And you started to describe, you use a little bit of saliva, and then what happens next?
Right. So you take a saliva sample, put it onto solution that separates the hormone, and then drop a couple of drops on a strip, kind of like a
Almost like the
thin.
COVID test we used to do for so long, isn't it? The same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Then you take a photo of the strip, which has 2 lines, and the algorithm reads the lines, and then it gives you a quantitative number. By the way, this test has already been used for years, or this type of test and the cortisol test has been used for years by athletes, Olympic athletes, Premier League athletes, for them to manage the training regimen, and they do it via lifestyle management to improve their performance.
So what are you tracking? What are those 2 lines? You mentioned cortisol, but obviously for us as women, there's many other hormones in place. So are you focusing just on one hormone? Is it all of them? How does it work?
Right. So we're working on a full panel because, yeah, they work in synchrony one with the other. So it's important to have the whole picture. So when we launch the full panel, we will have all the female hormones plus cortisol in saliva.
All right. So if I log in, how often would someone be doing this? Because I'm thinking, well, surely you're not going to do it every hour, but maybe every day in the beginning, maybe is there a limit to how often you can do it? Or do you actually get more insight from doing it more often? Because I think there's also sometimes a danger in getting a little bit too obsessed with testing, which has definitely happened for me. I admit that at some point, other specialists that I work with were like, well, is that actually helping you? Is that actually getting you anywhere? So I guess it's all about finding a balance, isn't it?
Right. And I think it's why. Like, why are you doing it? What do you want to get out of it? And what we identify is that there's 2 types of, I think, for example, there's people like us that are very much into health and wellness, and we just want to understand what works for us and understand our body better and get in tune with our body, because most of us are very disconnected with our bodies. Um, Ideally, we would recommend you to test over a cycle of 3 months, because every month, every hormone needs to be tested on a different schedule. And that will mean that in a whole month, you'll be able to see your whole hormonal cycle, but we need to have a base level. So then you do it 3 months and you see how that statistics help you. You can decide to do it again next year for another 3 months, or you can do it for 6 months and then see how the curve moves.
Yeah, and I'm sure it changes with the seasons. I mean, I feel very differently in winter than I do in summer, especially here where we have four very distinct seasons. So I'm sure that that plays a part as well. And I think you're right. There's probably 2 types of people, and I probably oscillate between the two, but I'm definitely more in the I want to know, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to understand. But then off lately, I've been trying to be a bit more like, let me just listen. I think my body should be telling me if I'm in sync a bit more intuitively what's good for me, what food is not good for me. I mean, the amount of people that eat things that they know make them feel crap and they keep eating it. I mean, it's just counterintuitive, but it keeps happening. So I feel that a big part of the journey has been actually connecting with that. And I'm sure testing helps, but I know you also have done a lot of work on yourself through other classes, meditation, self-development practices, mindfulness. So I guess that goes hand in hand with what you're proposing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also what we need to consider, and something you said, it changes throughout the year, but it also changes with the stages of our lives. And I think what I've learned in my experience is that we're just gonna be kind with ourselves, because we're not gonna be perfect all the time. And sometimes it will be easier for us to come back and try to sink in. And there will be times that life is hard, and there's so many things happening, and we just need to say, okay, we need to let it happen, and I'll get back to it when,
Just get through it.
yeah, when I can, then I go back to my uh being in order, but it's just accepting that that's part of being human.
Yeah, and I'm probably going through one of those right now. I don't know if it's just being back from holidays or it's the weather, but even though my hormones technically should be suggesting that I should be in the peak of my energy levels, I'm not. So, if I had your little test, that would have been very helpful because I could have checked if it's the planets or if it's the hormones because we don't know. But, regardless of what it is, sometimes you don't even need to know. I just know that I need to take more rest. I need to sleep more. I think I need to look after myself and not overly exert myself and be a bit more mindful about the commitments that I make. So, yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about, yes, sometimes, it's helpful to know if you have a condition and if the symptoms are such that it's actually impacting your daily life. But other times, I feel like you just have to accept that it is what it is, as you were saying, and you're going to get through that and it will go back to normal. But I can't promise you exactly when.
And the sun has it's so important in our lives, and when it's cloudy, or today we have snow, which is a big thing. We rarely do. Uh, Obviously, that impacts our day itself. So yeah, there's so many things that could impact our health. We just need to understand which one, so we know how to deal with it. And it may not be your hormones. It might be your vitamins, but then at least I know.
Yeah, you've ruled it out and you haven't been going on a wild goose chase. And this is part of what I'm trying to do here as well with this podcast is just to get all the specialists, if possible, in one place. And then, of course, technology can help as well for when you can't always get access to somebody, but just connecting the dots. I think for me, that's probably been the biggest learning of last year because you can spend, as you say, years and years and years speaking to wonderful specialists, but you do need someone to connect the dots for you because oftentimes what's causing the one condition can manifest in different ways, whether we're talking about the energetic body, the physical body, your mind, your feelings, and generally your mood. So yeah, I absolutely find this fascinating. But I did want to go back a little bit more to your own story because we know this is where you are now, entrepreneur, and as you said, not something that you could have ever planned for or anticipated. You were very happy with your job which you had. You were climbing the ladder, if you will, and enjoying that. But at some point, you said, well, I have to go and do this. So I wonder what that process was like.
Good question. So I think that, well, I was also very fortunate because just after working for Adidas, I work in a women's health startup, and that's when I got a glimpse of what uh, women's wellness and health was as a industry, and I just fell in love of bringing information to women and demystifying topics and bringing topics out in the open that have traditionally been misunderstood. And then just one thing led to the other. So to be honest, I don't know if I if I thought it with like a lot of detail what I was doing. I kind of just walked at it, and I saw the opportunity, and we jumped on it because it just it had to happen. So I don't know
Just
if I.
came to you. Yeah. And I think that's always the case I find with many women that come as guests on the show. They don't always have it all figured out in the beginning. And I think that's quite normal. I think the ones who think they do, they're usually the ones who find that, actually, they didn't really. And that works for some, but not for all. And often just going with what you intuitively, genuinely feel passionate about. And I know because we've spoken just how much you care about that topic. And I can relate because it was the same to me. I just started wondering, why am I always inviting guests on the podcast who have something to do with health and well-being? And why am I bringing all these specialists that have helped me? Is because I like it. I want to be part of this community. And I care about the work that all these people are doing. So it's pretty much a similar thought process. But
But I'm sure
I'm
it
sure,
hasn't been easy
yeah.
also for you, because doing a podcast is actually a lot of work. So I am curious to know what is it that what's that spark that keeps you going through all those hours of editing? Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, the editing is probably well, I used to say it was my least favorite part, and I feel like I should invite you to interview me because that's another idea that I've had for a long time. We'll do that eventually in reverse roles when we can find a little bit of time. But I think it's just been that the way I feel after I've recorded an interview, and sometimes I can even have the lowest energy day and I'm not feeling 100%. And I try to avoid those days, but sometimes it happens, or something happened during the day which upset me. It's not normal. But the moment I get on in front of the mic and I start recording and we have one of those conversations, at the moment that we get to the interesting part, which is what drives somebody and why they're doing it and their passion, you can see it and feel it and hear it for our listeners. I think that's really the feeling that just gives me so much energy. And I did read somewhere that if you're doing something that gives you energy, then you're on the right track. If it drains you, then you're probably not. So I don't know if that was the case with your previous jobs and maybe some of the decision making, but I think for many of the women that I've interviewed, that was part of it.
And that's it. I think that's you've described the journey of at least of a femtech entrepreneur is uh, that sometimes there's just such a low times where you're getting a lot of no's, a lot of pushbacks, things are just not really clicking. And sometimes it's just hard to to get that energy, and then you start talking to people like you or other women that have questions, or and you've kind of get re-energized, and you realize that it's just that you might need to find another way of doing what you thought it was the right thing, maybe the logo, spend time in something else. um, but there is a very human element of it. I'm an introvert, but I do realize that when I have this type of meetings very early in the morning, I have a much better day the rest of the day.
Interesting. You're probably somewhere on the spectrum of intro and extrovert, and I find that I'm probably 60-40, even though people might not necessarily gauge that because they say, "Oh, you work in communications and relationship with
Right.
people, and you must always like being around people." But no, and that's one of the biggest discoveries for me actually during the COVID times, and now it being back to the office and working hybrid mode, some days in the office, some days in if I don't have my days where I'm on my own without other people, I just don't feel productive. I don't feel well. And it was very recently that I did this human design map test or analysis, which I know I love talking about. Maybe we should have someone who's a specialist on the show to talk about that because it's another favorite passion of mine. And it told me that my profile was, I think people always focus too much on, are you generator, manifestor, blah, blah. I mean, I think that's fine, but that's 70% of the population is the same. So that's not really what makes you unique. But I think for me, it was I got two things in my profile. I think it was I was one of them was a hermit, and I was like, me, a hermit? But then it actually made sense because I do need time alone. And then the other one was wasn't an extrovert, but it was something pretty close. I can't remember the exact name now, but it was something that meant you have to be outside with people, as a storyteller or something along those
Oh,
lines.
I can see the
And I was like, well,
storyteller.
that's a very interesting combination of the two opposites, but that's just who I am. And I think it goes back to your point. You have to listen a little bit to who you are and what you do. But I wanted to ask you, what's next for Harmony? Obviously, you've got a few very exciting events happening over the course of the next few months, and hopefully the launch coming very, very soon.
Right. So I think for us, what is really important is to, first of all, really understand how we drive the most value to the to our users. And we are planning a soft launch just to value. I mean, we've done a pilot before where we had amazing conversations. Just yesterday, somebody texted me saying, "Thank you for letting me be part of the pilot." I'm like, "No, thank you for believing in us." It's like,
I'm thinking I want to be part of the next pilot. When is this coming? I love this kind of stuff.
so it's been a very, very community driven approach. A lot of women that have jumped in to help us. And I think that's how we want to keep it forward. I think it takes a village to create a solution that helps women, not only a baby, but also a femtech product. And we want to make sure that we capture all that information so we actually do something that helps and doesn't make things worse. And we get into more partnerships with specialists or with people that can help us or companies that can help us put the product everywhere where women can have easy access to it. I mean, there supplements, pregnancy tests, all of that is so, even razors, they're available everywhere. Also, tools that can help women understand themselves better should be available everywhere.
So is it an app then that comes with the product, or is it an actual physical product? I go to a pharmacy and I buy it there, or is it
Right.
both?
It's both, yes. So You'll be able to order it on our website. It's a box that comes with a few tests that you can test for a whole month, and then you download the app, and the app will help you read the test. So they're paired.
Hmm. And can I do that anywhere in the world? Is it available globally or just?
So the test will be available in limited locations. We're starting Singapore first, then moving through to the US, and we have a few other countries that have asked to get it available. So we're working through the details for that. But really, it's highly scalable. So anywhere where there's a cell phone tower you can test, as long as you have the tests with you. It's just a matter of the regulatory process, because it is considered a device. So that's the things that we need to work with the local authorities to make the product available.
Yeah, I know. There's always the idea that you have in the head, and then you start actually putting it into action. Then you, as an adult, you're like, "Oh, that's great," but I forgot that I'm actually living in the real world, and there's a lot of these red tape,
There are so
bureaucracy
many.
related challenges. And I've had a similar moment recently in my own life. I was like, "Oh yeah, it sounded so simple and straightforward in my head," and then actually I woke up with the reality that you need to speak to a number of people, a bit like you, a whole village, to make sure that what I want to realize is what I want to launch is actually likely to happen.
I had a
um,
boss that once told me she didn't know, so she did it. It's because you don't know, and then you go for it, and then you just get it done. Because we might not think of all the barriers, and that's a good thing.
yeah. Well, what's the biggest lesson then? What's the thing that you learned from being a business owner versus when you were working for somebody else? I'm sure there's quite a few lessons and that you're still learning, but was there something that you feel you would love to share with those who are just starting now on that track?
I think the biggest lesson is that people is at the center of everything we do and that's something that is very, very easy to forget when you're chasing, numbers. But the reality is all the products in this world are created for someone. You need people around you to help you create that product. You need people around you to get you to deliver that product. So in reality, it's a very collaborative approach. And I feel that as long as we have in mind why we're doing it or for who are we doing it for, it helps us to keep our mind on the goal.
Yeah, and this is a question that I always like to ask at the end of each interview. You can imagine, I don't know, let's say 5 years from now. It doesn't have to be, but where do you hope ultimately this journey will take you?
Well, I am hoping that we will be able to get enough data, um, permission. I should say that, but enough information that we're able to create better solutions for everyone, not just women, because once we understand 50%, it's easier to understand the other 50% that help us do more prevention and less patchwork. So
Yeah,
actual healthcare.
and this is so important because I think so often we're concerned, and rightly so, about privacy of information, and your records are, of course, very, very important part of that. But I think you are right in saying that with the right permission, it is actually very valuable data. And if you did actually want to contribute to that, you could by actually signing up and voluntarily helping with some of that information. It's just a bit, I suppose it's an extension of how tests used to be done in the past, where people would literally just line up and raise their hand and they'll go and try a new pill and then they'll be observed. We do it in a slightly different, more remote way now, but I think when it's fully consciously done, I think that could be extremely, extremely helpful for many women out there. And as you say, always the challenge always has been that women have been understudied, and for the right or wrong reasons, many of these products that are out there or medicines have not been tested on them.
Right. And I think we talk a lot about the impact to women, but what about the impact to society of women spending 25% of their lives in poor health? When they're ones taking care of the family, the one having babies, they're also big contributors to the economy. Uh, I mean, we can't just say it's just impacting women as an individual, it impacts the society as a whole.
Yeah, and I wonder, is there any plan to maybe do similar tests for men at some point? Because I can think of quite a few that I know have had bad sleep, and I think we obviously focus on women here, and it's a platform predominantly for women, but men go through similar challenges as well.
Absolutely. Men have hormones, animals have hormones, little kids, I mean, people of all ages have hormones. So yeah, no, I mean, the possibilities of building of the technology that now is becoming available, it's the stepping stone of things bigger. I mean, I'm a very optimistic person about technology in general, so I think use in the right way, it can help humanity a lot.
Well, I'm sure it's not been an easy journey getting to here, and I'm really excited for what's ahead of you, for you and Harmony and your business partners. And I think, again, I choose to be the optimist, but I genuinely believe that 2025 is going to be quite an interesting year. And again, interesting can mean different things to different people. But I think for me, it's going to be a year where hopefully, and I'm already seeing it, people are so much more open to all the things that we're talking about. I think even a few years ago, there wouldn't have been such an open audience willing to hear those things. And I think more and more people around the world, everywhere, are waking up to the fact that we need to change something about the way that we live. And that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a long process, but a lot of it starts with looking after our health and well being, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we just need to talk about it. What I realize, because I work in the sexual wellness industry before, and what I realize is that everybody wants to talk about it because we all have so many questions, but we're just too embarrassed because we don't know how we're going to be perceived or judged. And somebody just has to come out and say, um, and have the conversations and open the table for it. And that's why what you're doing is so valuable for all of us.
Well, thank you so much. You've been very kind. And as I said, again, it is one of those episodes where I know I'm going to walk away from it feeling full of energy and inspiration. So thank you so much for this, Myra, and all the best. I can't wait to see what happens in the next few months. And I'm very eagerly anticipating the launch and the time when we're going to be able to get the product. Just wanted to say a big thank you. Thank you to everyone who's listened to the podcast this third season. We've just come to the end, but I am so thankful and grateful for every single one of you who took the time to send me a message, write me a note, tell me that they found out something new, that they've been inspired to do something new, or that they've changed something just because of that podcast. And that is exactly what keeps me going. And of course, we're in the business of transformations, and that applies in full force to me as well. And of course, this podcast has continued to evolve, as has my overall brand, my personal journey. So I'm so pleased to share that there'll be a very exciting new season coming up this fall. And I am just about to record the first episode. Very exciting lineup of new guests, powerful, powerful, powerful women, full of energy, business leaders. We're going big, we're going for impact, we're going for scale. And as a result, I have outgrown slightly my little home studio, my cozy studio, which I set up a couple of years ago when I first dipped my toes into the deep waters of podcasting. And of course, the next step for us as we grow bigger and increase our impact is to move on to professional recording in a studio. We're going video as well, which is getting me quite out of my comfort zone, I must admit. I've been hiding very comfortably behind my mic, and now I'm going to have to learn how to be on camera. So, this is going to be an exciting new skill for me to add to my portfolio. A little bit of discomfort for sure, but also a lot of growth. And it's fantastic to have this opportunity to do this so well. I'm also really excited that we can now reach even more people. And I'm also really excited that we're so close to having my brand new Substack home for all of my voice notes, recording, transmissions, and general words of wisdom that come from my pen. And that will be the new home. That will be the new hub where all of that is going to be homed. Of course, perfectly aligned with the start of a season 4. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. If anything, things are going to get even more exciting. And a big thank you, thank you, thank you for being with me throughout this journey.